Hi guys, today I'm going to show you how to make a Black Forest cake. It's not a really quick cake like I normally do, but it's definitely worth the effort. And if you want to speed things up, then you can completely skip the pastry part. So to start, mix 60 grams of plain flour, 5 grams of cocoa, 40 grams of butter, 2 tablespoons of water and an optional 20 grams of sugar. And just rub it together in a bowl until it comes together in a dough. Roll it out onto a floured surface and you're really trying to get this quite thin, so half a centimetre or less. Then cut it to the shape of your tin. You'll probably find either a non-serrated knife or a pizza cutter are the best way to cut this. If you drag your knife, then you'll probably tear your pastry. You need to prick it with a knife and you need to bake it in a preheated oven at 160 degrees for 15 minutes. Make sure that you preheat that oven. I'm also using baking paper on mine, so what I do is I scrunch up some baking paper and put it over the top and then use ceramic baking beans, and that means that I get an even cook and it doesn't rise in the oven. So pop that in the oven, take it out and let it cool. This sponge has 3 ingredients: 6 eggs, 140 grams of golden caster sugar or brown sugar, and 60 grams of sifted cocoa powder. First thing to do is separate your eggs and whisk those yolks until they're really thick in a large bowl. I'm using an electric whisk, but you could definitely do this part by hand. And then mix in your golden caster sugar in 3 additions and keep going until it's pale and thick. You then need to add your cocoa. It's going to seem quite hard, but you need to make sure that you get all of that cocoa in, and then it's going to be quite a stiff, tight mixture. So in my stand mixer, I whisked up the egg whites, and to loosen the cocoa mixture, add 2 large spoons of your egg whites in, one at a time, and fold them into that cocoa mixture to really loosen that up, and it'll make it a lot easier to then combine the egg whites. Fold the cocoa mixture into your egg whites using a large metal spoon. Make sure that you do it gently, that way you're going to keep all of that air in those egg whites, and it's really going to mean the mixture is a lot lighter. Now make sure that before you start, you line your tins with a non-stick piece of parchment or a non-stick liner so that it'll come out nice and easily, and if there's any part of the tray exposed, then spray that with a non-stick spray. Spread the batter evenly into your trays using a palette knife and make sure that you're really gentle so that you don't knock too much air out. You need to bake it in the middle shelf of your oven for about 18 to 20 minutes for a small tray and about 24 minutes for a larger tray, and that's in the middle of a preheated 160 degree fan oven. If you're using a round cake tin, you'll need to adjust those times. I've got 450 millilitres of double cream in a large bowl, and depending on your taste you need to add 1 to 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, and 4 to 8 tablespoons of either sifted icing sugar or caster sugar. Now I'm going to use a stand mixer to whisk mine until stiff peaks, but if you prefer you could do soft peaks. Just be aware that the cream will probably spill out the sides a little bit if you do soft peaks. I'm also using a piping bag, but you don't need to, you could just use a spatula. You'll just get a much neater finish if you use a piping bag. I'm not using any kind of tip, I'm just going to snip off the end and use it as is. I've stuck the pastry base to the bottom layer of my sponge using warm cherry jam. I also cut all of the layers including the pastry base to be the same size. You need to make sure that you coat each layer of sponge in the syrup, and the syrup is really easy. I just used the juice that the cherries came in the jar, which is about 150 millilitres, and I added 2 tablespoons of amaretto and mixed it in. The sponge is quite dry, so you want to make sure that you do coat all of the sponge, but you don't want to make it soggy, so just put one coat and then allow it to soak in. To assemble the cake, add a layer of jam to the sponge. You need to add about 3 tablespoons per layer and spread it out. Then you need to pipe a cream border around the sponge and make sure that you leave at least a few millimetres from the edge as clearance. Add half of the cherries and then add some cream over the top, and you need to use a palette knife or a knife and spread it out evenly. You've got 2 jobs with this. The first one is to fill in any gaps, and the second one is to make sure that that layer is even so that the next layer of sponge that goes on top of it goes on flat as well. Once you've assembled it and you've made sure that everything's in the right place and everything looks neat and even, then sprinkle the top with some grated or shaved chocolate. I hope you liked this video. I hope you give it a try. Please like and subscribe, and I'd love to hear from you. Thanks very much for watching.